nice, and as well as his, the back of his head, his occipital area. But unfortunately, we don't have those pictures. Let's look at the next photo. And this is probably, one of the insanest recoveries I've seen in my life. This is so insane because you can see, although the lighting is not the same, right? Hello, everyone, and today we're back with another hair loss case study. Today, again, once more, we're going to be looking at the tressless hair loss subreddit, and this post from this particular user is going to be a bit quick, but it's also going to be glaringly obvious about why you want to take action when it comes to your hair loss, and that even if you think you're in a state of, like horrible hair loss, you should at least give it a shot, give it a try, and see what you can actually get out of the various therapies we have, right? Finasteride and dutasteride, whether it's topical or oral minoxidil or topical minoxidil, either or, and maybe even a hair transplant, right? So we're going to be looking at this particular user on the subreddit by the name of Distinct Quality 205. So let's look at this post. They say, quote, 1 milligram oral finasteride, topical RU588 for 1, and liquid minoxidil. Some days I feel like I've made no progress, but I just found my old pictures. Consistency is key, unquote. And let's go through the camera roll and see what, progress this particular user made, right? So as you can see, right, we're looking at a lot of hair loss, right? Yeah, he has some long hairs in the front, but there's a large area of diffuse thinning, right? His mid-scalp is just largely diffuse. His hairline is pretty diffuse. And the hairs that exist, right, they have some meaningful length, but they're also thin in and of themselves, right? It's like, it looks like they've lost some width. Now, I really wish we had some sort of view of his like parietal area, right? Or his temporal parietal area. That'd be nice. And as well as his, the back of his head, his occipital area. But unfortunately, we don't have those pictures. Let's look at the next photo. And this is probably, one of the insanest recoveries I've seen in my life. This is so insane because you can see, although the lighting is not the same, right? You can clearly see the vitality of the hair itself. You can see how thick and how, robust the hair is, right? You can see it's way more dense than the previous picture. Again, different angle, but you don't need to be a rocket scientist to see the difference here, right? Look, diffuse, each hair is like really thin in width, right? Look at this over here. Look at this. Full density. A lot of density, right? It's visibly thick. You can tell like this hair really has some weight on it. And this is because he's stuck on treatment, right? Now, this is between 2021 and 2024. So that means he's been on treatment for around 3 years or so. But even then, that goes to show you that with some people, right, you can keep making progress beyond just a single year. In fact, we have the Rossi et al. Study that is the 10-year Italian study, and it does show evidence that the longer you are on treatment, the better the outcome, right? You have the Japanese study, the 10-year Japanese finasteride study. And in that study, same story too, right? The longer you're on finasteride or some sort of 5-alpha reductase inhibitor that's effective like dutasteride, the better your chances of hair growth, so getting new follicles to grow more hair, as well as just increasing the overall weight of the hair itself. So this is fantastic. Now, let's have a look at the comment section real quick, but let's give him a quick upvote. Okay, so we're in the comment section. There's a user named DeepEcho8240, and he asks this question. He said, would you say after 1 till 2 years, the gains were still coming in? And our user, the one who had this fantastic recovery, Distinct Quality 205, responds, quote, really hard for me to say since the gains happened so slowly. I started mixing RU with minoxidil about a year in and stopped and then restarted with RU a few times. I think that could have affected my gains a bit. And then somebody asks him the question, do you think RU was the reason for your gains? And he goes on to explain what RU5841 is to another user. And for those of you who don't know, RU5841 is a topical anti-androgen. It never made it to market. It's an experimental topical. You can find it on gray market websites, but that's not the focus here, right? There is some risks to this particular medication because we don't have the full safety profile to it, because unfortunately the pharmaceutical companies that tested it out on humans, mind you, there was a phase 1 and phase 2 trial, they never actually released the blood markers or any sort of safety data regarding it. But it seems to be moderately safe, but when you get something from a gray market source, you don't know if you're getting true RU5841. But in any case, right, I guess this user, right, he was just concerned about the potential theories when it comes to heart impacts with RU5841, so he didn't want anything to do with it. So I guess that's why he stopped and reused it, and then just ultimately, I guess, stopped using it overall. But all in all, it seems as if he's attributing most of his gains to the finasteride, oral finasteride, 1 milligram a day, and liquid minoxidil. I'm assuming 5%. That's the typical, concentration people use it at. And, from the studies we see, anything above 5% doesn't seem to actually work that well, better than 5%. And I'll throw a study on the screen and also include it in the description as well. But overall, if we're just looking at this guy's hair, progress, his hair loss progress, or his hair recovery progress, rather, this is fantastic. And there also is a point to be made here, right? Take photos, be consistent. Right, he went through his pictures because he thought he wasn't making any progress, and then he found a really old picture and he was like, "Oh man, I guess I did make quite a bit of progress." Right, and when you're dealing with your hair on a day-to-day basis, as things slowly get better, unless you're making a substantial recovery, even though I think he did, but he probably lost sight of the recovery he was making due to how slow it was and how it literally took 3 years. When you have those baseline photos, and you're 2 years out and you compare, you're going to be like, wow, I'm so happy I started treatment. So let's have another look, right? Baseline photo, diffuse, right? Over here, full, dense, thick, luscious. Over here, full, dense, thick, luscious locks. In any case, guys, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and thank you, Distinct Quality 205, for having shared your pictures to the Trustless community. But in any case, if you guys are interested in getting help with your hair loss recovery, hair loss journey, I do hair loss consultations when it comes to transplants, also looking at the literature regarding hair loss in general, and helping people come up with treatment plans that they can discuss with their doctor. In any case, that's it for this video. All links are in the description below. Peace out, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.